Hello there, welcome to another YouTube video. Today we're going to be talking about Activision Blizzard once again because they just continue to do things. Can they just cease to exist? Can somebody just send them a cease and desist? Just stop everything that you're doing? Because every time I think I'm out, they literally pull me back in, to quote The Godfather 2. Free. Godfather 3. How did I forget that? They're amongst my favourite movies. Jesus. Dear God. My brain capacity has been deeply affected during this pandemic. But yeah, there's a compilation of free stories today. So I will put that in one video because I think it works a bit better than, having individual videos upon each. I just want to thank everyone who watched the mini-series about Ubisoft. There is about an hour and a half of content in those two videos. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot to make, but one of them was already made, so it was fine. Happy Halloween and all that. I hope you've had a good spooky season. It's completely passed me by, unfortunately. I've just been streaming Halo and then, taking it day by day, so I haven't really got wrapped up in it, unfortunately. But, maybe next year. The EEOC has reportedly been looking into allegations of gender-based harassment at the publisher since at least May 2020, and it is said to be in settlement talks with Activision, which could end up paying millions of dollars. The agency declined to comment to the Wall Street Journal and is unclear whether the federal agency will publicly release the details of its findings. So, potentially, we could have a backdoor deal done here with a branch of government that will never find out the details of what they found was going on, And we live in a fair and just society, and there's no corruption here whatsoever. It's weird. I literally said that they'll probably play a settlement yesterday, and here we are. Am I the smartest person on the planet? Or is it just that painfully obvious that the system is quite corrupt, and nobody ever has to face huge charges against anything if you have money? In a shocking turn of events where literally nobody could have seen coming, Activision Blizzard have struck an $18 million settlement with the US employment watchdog. And that does seem really low, doesn't it? When you consider this is a billion-dollar profit-making company. Every year they make billions or whatever due to their microtransactions in Blizzard games and Call of Duty, It's effectively a similar amount of when you donate a few dollars to charity or something. That's effectively what $18 million is to Activision Blizzard. It sounds like a lot from the average person, but to them, it's not even the bonus for their CEO every year, it literally isn't. And we've covered that in the past, they give more to bonuses for the upper echelons of the company versus, a historic investigation, something I've never seen in the gaming industry. And unfortunately, the US employment watchdog haven't been prepared to go the distance. They haven't been prepared to, let it play out in court and, continue the investigation. I have no idea what happens after a settlement, but I highly doubt that the investigation continues. It's just kind of a thing where it's like, okay, well, we'll stop investigating now. So you can't really say justice ever gets served when a settlement happens, It's akin a little bit like hush money, really, isn't it? And the thing is, right, you've got to consider, where is the settlement money going? If it goes to the victims, how many victims of this were there at Activision Blizzard? And depending on the number of victims, the way that money will get divided, and then they may not even get that much money personally, Of course, if this was going to one person, this is a life-changing amount that would support them so well that, they would be covered for life effectively. But it's not going to be, because at the end of the day, to a certain degree, being in an abusive environment, yes, that money will help in leaving that environment. But let's just say, for example, you live in a situation where you live with people who are abusive to you. Getting a significant amount of money will allow you to move away from that environment, which will be good for you and your mental health. But quite often you have like trauma that you have to deal with for the rest of your life, which in America, having a mental health condition is a very expensive thing that requires lifelong treatment, because you just can't just cure a mental health situation. You have to manage it for the rest of your life, which is incredibly expensive. So the idea, if anyone has ideas that, these employees are suddenly going to be much happier and what they've been through has just been, well, they won't ever think about it again because they'll be rich. They're not going to be rich. Like 18 million into like 600 or something. That's just me randomly throwing out the number 600. It really depends on the sheer number of people who have been on the end of this poor treatment from Activision Blizzard. We don't know. These things tend to be underreported because people are afraid to speak out in case they see negative action from it. It's basically here, this is a $18 million fund to compensate employees who claim damages. And at the end of the day, there's something really grim about the fact that, you will now have life struggles for the rest of your life that will throw a little bit of money at you. And then, we're absolved of all blame, effectively. The idea that we have the best justice system in the world, in the West, is so unbelievably wrong, and it's so weird that people are like, well, our justice system is amazing. There's miscarriage of justice every single day that we all just ignore because we have a sense of sanctimoniousness. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I really don't care for their statement in regards to this. It's just more corporate buzzwords and bullshit. So I'm just not even going to provide it to you. If you want to see it, click the sources in the description of this video, but I'm going to move on here. So if you're one of the few people that don't know what's going on, Activision Blizzard were investigated by branches of the US government and then sued by said branch, and it became a massive thing over regarding the sexual harassment of employees, female employees at the company, and alleged different treatment for employees of colour at the company compared to white employees. So institutionalized racism, for example. And obviously this has kept on becoming a story. This, unlike the Ubisoft thing, this blew up. People had more of an energy in regards to talking about this and wanting it to end and so on. And the gaming press covered this further. And I do wonder if that's because they didn't have a game showcase event in the weeks after this regard. They only had the yearly Call of Duty release for Activision, and it was mainly a Blizzard thing, and they have shown Blizzard games since, but it's obviously not getting the same positive reaction because there does seem to be more of a desire to hold them accountable than with what happened to Ubisoft, which is good, but it is a very low bar because Ubisoft effectively got away with it scot-free, and are able to do whatever because Far Cry 6 was on the horizon. Now, because of that, anything that Activision Blizzard have done has been to repair the damage for their PR. It's cynical, but the good thing about being cynical is that you can predict what was happening. I predicted that they were going to have a settlement. I just felt it, I have a decent grip of how society is, and well, I saw that coming, unfortunately. Now, with this idea of they were doing the bare minimum for the goodness of their PR, this story came out this week on the 19th of October. Activision Blizzard reportedly fires 20 employees following harassment claims. Now I ask you to delve into your brain and wonder if 20 employees, just these 20 employees with them going, will that fix the situation? Now let's give them the benefit of doubt here. Let's just say it was these 20 employees and only them that created this atmosphere, and they have taken out all of the bad apples from the bunch. The problem is they're leaving behind people who saw that this was happening and didn't do anything. Now, that could be either that they didn't care, or they were used to that kind of surroundings and that environment, or it was one of those things, it didn't happen to me, so I don't care. There's a lot of selfish people like that in the world, you know. If it doesn't happen to me, I'm not invested in it. You know, it's just one of those things. I'm not saying that you should be fired over that, but that person who doesn't care when it doesn't happen to them, they are a particular roadblock when it comes to repairing the workplace culture at that company, you know. A particularly big one, even though inherently they haven't really done anything wrong. They just haven't done anything right either. They're morally neutral. I mean, you can make the argument that they're bad for not acting and not helping, but you can also make an argument where, you know, maybe they didn't do it because they feared about their job, you know, security. Because a lot of these people could have been higher ups or compared to them, and they didn't want to be punished. So that's why they didn't do anything, you know. You can make the arguments both cases, right? And then you have to consider those who are left, those who were the victims / survivors of this situation, those who may still work at Activision Blizzard and haven't quit because they haven't had the opportunity to go somewhere and work, which is a better atmosphere, you know. Believe you me, there are a lot of companies in the gaming industry that have this kind of workplace environment, but we don't talk about it because, you know, the atmosphere of being a woman in the industry or a member of the LGBT community is a difficult one because it's a male-dominated space, predominantly a white male base, you know, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad idea, a bad thing. But when those same people yell about representation in the industry because they feel it's their thing and they want to protect their hobby from outsiders, in inverted commas, then it does become a bad thing. And for those people at the company, what do they do? Like, how do you recover from what trauma that you would have received at the hands of this company? How do you trust your co-workers again, you know? Yeah, you basically have to try and carry on and manage whatever issues that you may have that have come from it, which is a very difficult thing to do, you know? But it is my belief that just firing 20 employees isn't going to fix the problem. I don't know how you fix the problem without widespread changes, you know? And I don't think there's a company on planet Earth that is willing to do that. Another thing that they said was that they were going to expand their ethics and compliance team after reports of sexual misconduct and discrimination. But how will those who were on the receiving end of poor treatment truly believe that the compliance team are going to help them, you know? What if the compliance team is made up of people who have done these very things? You're not going to trust them, are you? You are perfectly within your right to be distrustful of management because they haven't really done enough to support the people on the end of this treatment at all. On the subject of distrust, Activision Blizzard employees skeptical that executive who denied sexism problems can solve them. I mean, they won't. They literally won't. If you don't think that it's going to happen, how will you do what is necessary to rebuild the culture at the company? You just can't. It's impossible because he's not going. He downplayed or they, I don't know the gender to be fair. They did have that person who used to work for George Bush and was a torture advocate that also denied the problem several months ago. So it's not just a men thing. Women also downplay sexual harassment on a regular basis. So that's a fun thing, isn't it? But how would they do it, you know? Why would you trust them? You would be stupid in trusting somebody who's downplayed it originally, because you would be putting yourself in a very difficult position by randomly trusting them. Oh, look, it's that same fucking employee as well. Oh, Fran Townsend. It's literally her. Oh dear. Well, funnily enough, when she said that the lawsuit was distorted and untrue, obviously that didn't go over well. And it was her comments which was part of the reason why the employee walkout happened on July 28th. It seems she's taking a more conciliatory approach in an email that one Activision Blizzard employee described to PC Gamer as the first email from her that hasn't been overtly offensive. Well, that's wonderful, isn't it? Good for Fran. Good old Franny, you know. Maybe she's learning. Oh, maybe we can fix her. The fact is, she's still in charge of overseeing improvements in this area makes me have very little belief in whatever she wants to tell us. Two other Activision Blizzard employees who spoke to PC Gamer also called out the discrepancy between Townsend's latest email and her previous denials. It's a thing, isn't it? You could apologise for the previous denials. It just looks like she's saving face. And people who have been abused, you don't want to trust somebody. Like, you trust your co-workers right up to the moment they abuse you, and then the higher-ups, they have the opportunity to do something about it, and in this case they didn't, so you don't trust them either. So then you have somebody who came into the company in an even more senior role who outwardly spoke about how this wasn't a problem and denied the problem was as bad as it was. So from all areas within the company, you have reasons to distrust those around you. Just by changing her tune, you're not going to forget that she downplayed something that you would have been your lived experience, and the trauma that you're having now to manage wasn't enough for her to do anything about it originally. And this is the person that's overseeing the changes. How can you trust that there will be change here? The email which Activision Blizzard published online this week outlines the company's plan to respond more decisively to HR reports, grow its investigation team, and increase transparency. According to Townsend, over 20 people have exited the company due to employee reports in recent months, and over 20 others have received some other disciplinary action. While there's still distrust of the executives, the mood within Activision Blizzard teams isn't necessarily dour. The same employee who said they have very little belief in Townsend also told PC Gamer that they have tremendous faith in their team's direct leadership, and that they've heard the same from people in other teams. A different Activision Blizzard employee who spoke to PC Gamer also stated that their team has a positive mood and is invested in improving things. That employee does think that the new execs seem genuinely focused on improving a culture that has been toxic for several decades, but said that they've come off as defensive and uninterested in how employees feel. Company leadership has also failed to increase trust in the HR department, the employees said. I mean, that's not a real surprise, is it? You know, this HR department was in a position where they could have done something about this situation, but they chose not to. Whether that they were under orders by people that were up above, or they just weren't really qualified to deal with the complaints that they were dealing with, you know. They were inept at their job and handling the situation, and by doing that they allowed this to perpetuate for a number of years without justice ever happening. And many wonderful employees, you know, left, and their company got worse from it. And obviously one employee died because of this whole thing. And that's literally the end of that story, really. So yeah, I'm going to put myself in the position of being an Activision Blizzard employees. It's like a little thing I like to do in this situation and topics of like how I would react in the situation. And I'm a naturally cynical human being. I would just be thinking about what the initial reaction that Fran had, because the initial reaction is that she obviously thought that this was all going to blow away, and she's been proven wrong by the public's desire and the gaming's press desire to have something done about this, because people have believed the allegations going into this, because the idea that people would make it up for whatever reason is just so stupid. You know, there's no personal gain about publicly criticizing your employer. You're putting your job insecurity at risk for doing so. And as this situation has unfolded, I'm sure Fran Townsend has been worried about how to, you know, double down on her position within the hierarchy. So she's obviously, you know, on a peace treaty mission at the moment to try and smooth things over. But she's in the position to do something about those employees who are accused. Notice that they said they exited. Now, in the previous story, they were under the impression they were fired, but exited and fired are two different words. Some may have resigned, and resigned to avoid punishment, effectively, like what happened with Ubisoft. They were still able to profit from the association with that company, you know. But yeah, I personally would not believe that Fran Townsend has the desire or, you know, compassion required to sort out a problem as endemic as sexual harassment throughout this company, you know. If your first thought is to deny the problem, then you cannot be trusted in being one of the most important people in regards to cleaning the whole mess up, really. And that's what we'll end on that. So that was the video. I once again thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it. It's so difficult starting anew when you had an old channel that had a lot more views and so on. So I appreciate everyone who watches my videos. The first announcement at the end of this today, I have a Kofi. I launched it to give people an alternative way of supporting me via my streaming, because, you know, Twitch had done nothing about the hate raids and something, and maybe that's a topic we'll discuss in the future when it's kind of died down a little bit. Who knows? But yeah, obviously Twitch were twiddling their thumbs while people were being driven off the platform. So I wanted to give people an alternative way of supporting me, as I don't personally like the fact that Twitch, you know, takes such a big cut from so on. But I think these things are endemic, so people just, you know, it's the norm to support streamers via Twitch, so they just continue because it's the default option or whatever, which is fine. But yeah, and the thing about Kofi, you can use it like Patreon if you want, and I know some people that do and are successful on it and have tiered options, but I don't have the energy or ideas to do so. So I'm just using it as a place where you can donate to me directly if you want. Of course, these things are all optional, you know. I'm never going to expect anything from anyone, and I'm never going to pressurize anyone into doing it. Let's be real. I make YouTube videos and stream at home, not as a career. It's nice to earn a bit of money from it from time to time over like several months of work or whatsoever. But ideally, nobody would support me on Twitch financially. You would support me via Kofi, because not only do I get a bigger cut from it, we're also not putting money straight into Amazon's hands, you know. And we always talk about on this channel how bad Amazon are to its workers, you know. So there would be a little consistency in that. So what I've done is I've also lowered the minimum donation that you can do. The default donation is like £3 on whatever that is. I decided to lower it because, you know, if there's a slight chance that I'm literally pricing anyone out from supporting me, then I wouldn't want to do that, you know, because any support is good support at the end of the day, you know. I need to message somebody to try and get them to stop their recurring sub on Twitch, actually. I'll probably do that at the end of this video. But if you've enjoyed my YouTube videos over the past like year and a bit, almost 2 years now, and would like to support me, I will leave the Kofi link in the description from all videos going forward. So yeah, thanks for that. And the second announcement is that over the end of the year, whether it's November or December, I plan on making a mini-series about remasters. Because obviously, if you don't know, GTA 3, Vice City and San Andreas have been remastered by Rockstar Games, and it is coming out November 11th. Of course, isn't the Skyrim Special Edition thing? It's not Special Edition. There is a Special Edition, isn't there? I don't even know what it's called. I think that's also coming out on the same day, on November 11th, because I mean, it'd be 10 years to the day since Skyrim got first release, and there's been a remaster for PS4, and like in 2016, after 5 years, wasn't it? And then there's been another one, or whatever. But in regards to those videos, I want to do a video about the difference between remasters and remakes, because a lot of people use those words interchangeably. I used to do that in the past. And I think it would be helpful to point out the differences, so when a game's being remastered, people don't have these incredibly high expectations that they want to yell about on the internet, which I've seen people do in regards to these remasters from Rockstar. I'm not going to bat for Rockstar. They've earned enough money from the GTA community through GTA 5, to be honest with you. So I just thought it would be helpful to have something like that, and then obviously a video about remaster culture, because it's a thing, isn't it? You know, it's funny because if you think about it, remade movies tend to be terrible, but remastered games are popular. It's an interesting disconnect there. I'm not sure whether I'd actually explore that in the video, but there's this culture of remastering games these days, and you know, it'd just be very interesting to look at the pros and cons of something. But anyway, with that all being said, thanks for watching. I hope you'll join me in the next video.